Well, joining me now is the Deputy Liberal Leader Sussan Ley. And Sussan Ley, thank you for joining us. What an interesting suspension of standing orders there. You just decided to wrap up last question time with an attack over power prices. Talk us through that.
Well, it's not something we do on a regular basis, Andrew.
No, it's about the second time you've done it.
Exactly. But doesn't that underscore the importance of actually saying, with great frustration, must I say, to the Prime Minister and his front bench, stop making excuses, because we've had all the excuses in the world. We actually need solutions. We need a plan and we need a commitment. We're not getting any of those. We've still got this sort of outlining of the problem, making of, as I said, excuses, hand-wringing about it's all too difficult, the war in Europe, how hard is it to talk to our gas suppliers? Apparently it's very difficult, and on it goes. Meanwhile, Australian families are looking at a $2,000 hit before Christmas, and of course mortgages, energy prices and more pain next year. And the point I really wanted to get across is that when you go out and talk to small businesses and visit manufacturers and actually understand the anxiety they're experiencing and the fact that their energy bills are going up to 5 times, you know, you really do get that sense of, come on, government, do something about this.
Well, I want to show you an image from yesterday. If we can pull this up, please. It's of you and Scott Morrison shortly after he gives his censure motion. I'm sure it's coming. If it's not, you basically go to hug him, essentially. Oh, there we are. There you go. A lot of affection there for Scott Morrison after that censure motion speech. Look at that image there. Talk us through that.
Look, Andrew, I don't walk away from my friends. You don't have many friendships in politics. I have a few, and I treasure them. And while I wouldn't say that Scott Morrison is my closest friend, he has always been a friend throughout the difficult years of COVID, to me as a member of his cabinet and to me as a New South Wales Liberal right from the day that he actually came to my pre-selection in the small town of Culcairn and said, you know, I had been selected and supported me through a very challenging first campaign.
Did he stuff up, though, with the secret ministries?
Look, he's acknowledged that he made mistakes. And as I said, my point is, you know, you don't walk away from your friends because they might have done something you didn't agree with. And Peter Dutton and I have made it very clear that where there is legislation or regulation that's needed to fix these loopholes, of course we're doing it. But, you know, one of the things that matters most in politics is loyalty. And I think it's important that you remember the loyalty we should have to each other as members of the coalition, and the fact that, as was explained by many of us around these events, we did lead a first-class international response to COVID. We all look back and we could have done things different when it came to managing the pandemic, but we're proud of what we achieved. And remember, you know, I was in the inside of that cabinet. I saw how hard our Prime Minister and all of my colleagues worked, and you know how incredibly challenging those times were. And I know that history will judge us when that moment comes as having managed that, because internationally that's already been well accepted.
I wanted to ask about this letter you wrote to COSBOA, the board, that's a Council of Small Business organisation, asking them to get rid of their CEO. Why'd you do that?
Well, they're your words, but I certainly do not take a backward step when it comes to having the right people in the right places to support our small businesses. Now, COSBOA has been used by this government. Remember...
Isn't this a form of bullying, though?
Oh, goodness me, no, because it's not personal. There is nothing personal about this. Bullying isn't personal.
It's pretty drastic action for a politician to write to the board of a lobby group saying you might want to reconsider who your CEO is.
I wanted to draw to the attention of the board of an organisation that I believe their organisation is not acting in the best possible interests of their members who are small businesses. And you know, you might need to break a few eggs on the way through to get the point across, but that point is simply that we're here for the small businesses that are hurting around Australia, and we need an organisation, we need everyone who is able to fight that fight, to be fighting it on the front foot, because otherwise we're letting those small businesses down. And again, this is not personal, this is organisational. We need the organisations to be absolutely doing their best for the people they purport to represent. And remember, Andrew, that Tony Burke has actually acknowledged that they didn't have a mandate for their IR legislation when they came into government. He's actually said it came out of the Jobs and Skills Summit. And the government has rolled out this organisation and others to say, well, they told us at the Jobs and Skills Summit they wanted this. That's clearly not the case. But from that point on, you know, we needed COSBOA, and we need COSBOA to fight that fight.
Do we need a cap on gas prices? Do we need a domestic gas reservation?
We need a government that understands that when you interfere with the market and you put price caps on, you get in all sorts of trouble. Because
So you
just
don't
look
think
at the
they should
states.
do caps, or you don't think the state should do coal caps?
Well, I don't have all the information in front of me, but I do know that they floated the idea. They thought it would be simple, perhaps. The states all came back and said, well, we've taken advice and we think there may be billions of dollars of compensation that need to be paid. So I assume the states will say to the federal government, we'll go ahead with this federal government, you pay the compensation, you bear the legal and sovereign risk. I mean, that just indicates how complex this is.
What else can you do without caps, I guess?
Well, what you could have done is acknowledge that when you came into government, you needed to have this problem solved. The situation we're talking about now was there 6 months ago. I remember it being talked about in the week after Labor took on government. So where have they got? Absolutely nowhere.
Can we take it from what you're saying, though, the opposition, if they come out with caps on gas, if they say to the state governments put caps on the coal price, the opposition will oppose that?
We will always look at what they present. Of course we will. And how can we rule out something when we don't know what it is? By the way, it's taken them far too long to tell us what it is. But we've always said supply is a key part of this. But Andrew, their heart is not in it. You know, their rush for renewables. Every day we see the Energy Minister say how amazing it will be to get to renewables. I think it will be too, by the way. It's just that the transition to get to that point is not the transition they're describing, because their transition pushes prices up beyond what is bearable to households and businesses. We're simply saying do this in a measured way that keeps affordability and doesn't mean people have to choose next winter between eating and heating. And that is really not a choice I want to see Australians have to make, because this government has pushed up power prices.
All right, nearly out of time. Couple of quick questions. What do you think of Natalie Ward failing to win pre-selection in New South Wales?
Look, Natalie Ward is an outstanding female candidate. I don't know the detail of that pre-selection, but I want to see more women in Parliament, and I hope Natalie is staying in the upper house. I'm not sure what the process is for that to happen, but of course I want to see more women in both parliaments, well, in fact, every parliament, and in my own division of New South Wales. So the New South Wales division is now led by an outstanding President, Maria Kovacic, and she has this very much close to her heart.
And just a final question, has Stuart Robert got anything to worry about with these revelations around this government contractor and the relationship with the lobbyist?
Well, Stuart Robert has said that these allegations are incorrect, and Bill Shorten, instead of worrying about the NDIS, which should be his first priority, has launched an investigation, a review. That's fine. That will take shape. That will take its process, and we'll see what the end result is.
Sussan Ley, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.